Well, hello friends of YouTube. First off, I must apologise because this is just going to be my face talking at you, which is, well, comes with parental advisory warning, obviously. So what I wanted to do today is have a talk about these new rules that they're trying to bring in. So last week, Simon Dale put a post on a forum and followed up with a video on Vimeo. I'll put the link below, talking about the EASA Prototype Commission Regulation on UAV operations, which is quite a mouthful. If you don't know who Simon Dale is, aside from being the proprietor of the shop firstpersonview.co.uk, he's also been working behind the scenes for years in discussions with the CAA and Ofcom, trying to get the best possible deal and conditions for FPV pilots, here in the UK at least. It's because of him that we have certain exemptions to the CAA rules, as well as access to good insurance without being a member of a club. In short, he's one of the good guys. So I didn't simply want to parrot what Simon said about this, and you should definitely check out his video for a more in-depth rundown of these proposals. I just wanted to make this video to draw attention to anybody who may not have seen it from him. So the EASA is the European Aviation Safety Agency, and there's a few things you might immediately think. It's an EU thing, and the UK is coming out of the EU eventually, so this won't affect us. Maybe, maybe not. It's apparently quite common for neighbouring countries like ours in Europe to share common agreed air authority stuff. So this has a good chance of becoming law even if we're not in the EU. And even for you guys outside of Europe, watch out, because generally what seems to happen is when one region adopts some sort of rules or ideas, the rest of the world tends to adopt it. They just fall in behind, especially if it's an easy excuse to tighten the rules further or restrict people in some way. They can go with the, well, this is what Europe's doing, and they're progressive and ahead. The document itself, 70 odd pages, it's not a particularly easy read. Again, look in the description, I'll put a link down there, feel free to run through it. But the main crux of it is it breaks down like this. And by the way, prototype document doesn't mean it's to do with prototype aircraft or anything. It basically means it's a draft before it goes into law. What it does is split flying things, UAVs, into three specific categories. There's open, which is the low risk category, where no authorization is needed as long as you're in the right place and follow the rules. Basically, don't fly around an airport. There's specific, which they class as medium risk, where authorization is required by an aviation authority, which generally sounds like what commercial UAV guys have to do now. And they're certified, which is high risk, where requirements are broadly the same for manned flight, which is, I think, way out of the scope of any hobbyist. So I just wanted to talk about the open category, because you'd think, well, this is us. It's actually split into subsections, and we start with the A0 stuff, which is the absolute negligible risk to people. And there are other categories if it's decided they pose a slightly higher risk. So A0 is the most open, and you pretty much think any radio controlled stuff would go into it. So an A0 aircraft under these rules must either be an off-the-shelf product with a visible CE label, which basically says I am an A0, or in the case of home-built equipment, which is pretty much everything. Looking around here, yep, everything. It must have a mass of less than 250 grams and a max ground speed of 15 meters a second, which is 33 miles an hour. You can't go higher than 50 meters, or 150 feet, and visual line of sight must be maintained, and you can't go further away than 100 meters. Whoa, that's draconian. I mean, your average race drone is going to come up at about 500 grams at least, with battery and camera. And pretty much every plane I have, apart from my tiny little Hornet, weighs more than that. So this is serious. And even if you get an off-the-shelf product, the same rules apply. It can't go higher than 50 meters or further than 100 meters away. Somehow, little tiny things like this have to have some sort of enforcement for doing this. So you'd have this, it'll have a label on it to say I'm A0 category, it'll have some sort of method to make sure it can't go too high and too far away, which I would guess is a really crappy radio receiver, so it basically hasn't got the range. So what happens there? There's no drone racing, there's no flying out in the open, there's tiny tight circles. I mean, yikes. I mean, once you go further into the categories, and it goes A0 to A3, in the A1 category, and I haven't looked up exactly what classifies an A1, apart from the risk, which is possibly mass and weight. But as soon as you get to A1, there's no section for making your own anyway. So I've kind of, well, what's the point of looking at it? You're talking pure off-the-shelf product. Now there's an ID label that shows it's registered to you, so we're talking registration here as well. Flight restrictions are the same, which is the 50 metres, 100 metres away. The speed restriction is the same. This, 33 miles an hour? Come on, what's the point of that? How are you going to do drone racing? It's going to be sort of drone walking. It gets worse though. In A2, you have to have an up-to-date geofencing system. So clearly you're talking GPSs, you're talking it must be updated on the internet to show where your no-fly zones are. And then this will obviously kick in and stop you flying too fast or going too far away. But by A2 as well, which I think at the moment we're just talking about hobbyist drones, sort of maybe 450 size, it has to have some sort of means of electronic identification as well. That means that the ID can be traced to you without physically having to contact the drone. So I don't know how, some sort of radio transmitter, some sort of something. By the time you get to A3, you're finally allowed to go to the dizzying heights of 150 metres. But you have specific restrictions that have to maintain visual line of sight, and you also have to have some evidence of receiving some training in order to fly it. I mean, who's training on hobbyist drones? This is crazy. I mean, the next category along is specific category, and as soon as you're getting into this, it's like commercial flying. You're doing risk assessments, you've got UAV logbooks, your certification and stuff. I didn't even get into certified because obviously that becomes horrendous. But the fact is, if this becomes law, either we all just go around breaking the rules even more than usual, but in a much more this is all against the law sense, because it's going to completely destroy all RC flying and all drones and anything you like. It's just going to be hopeless. I mean, there's talk about allowing it through clubs, but you know, I didn't get into this to fly around in a circle in a single field. It's fun to explore. It's fun to mess around through the trees, you know, and that can be done safely without this horrendous draconian stuff. The cynic in me is thinking that the push to get private individuals and hobbyists like us out of the airspace must come from people who want to put their drones up in the sky and think they own that space, which is Google essentially at this point. Of course, that's substantiated. I can't prove anything about that, but that's just my cynical point of view. But what can we do? Well, obviously we don't want these rules becoming law. At the moment, they're in kind of the proposal stage, but if they come in, they'll destroy everything. So we can't have it. What you can do, please watch Simon's video. It goes into more detail, but write to your MP or your European Member of Parliament, tell them we don't want this. You know, it's not difficult to make a case about this is my hobby, I do it safely. Why are people trying to restrict me? There's, I mean, the government keep going on about how big this drone industry is going to be, and that's spoiling all the fun. But yeah, I mean, it's quite easy to make a case. It's really not hard to wonder why we voted to get out of Europe with things like this. Anyway, I hope that brings it to the attention of a few more people. Please watch Simon's video. Please react in some way and find out who your Member of Parliament is. Send them an email. Please don't use a form email. Apparently that's seen as a single thing. If you get 1,000 of them, it's seen as one. But yeah, let's see if we can do something else. Well, the YouTube videos are going to be really boring otherwise. Anyway, catch you next one.